In today's episode of the Author Hangout, we hear from Heather Hart from trainingauthors.com, where she talks about her story getting into self-publishing, 3 easy ways to get social on social media, the biggest mistakes authors make on social media, why writing quality books will prepare you for the future, why giving books away is a great strategy, and how you can start off marketing well. Are you ready for this? Let's jump right in. Hey everybody, welcome to the Author Hangout. Today our guest is Heather Hart from trainingauthors.com. Heather, it's great to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Good, good. So Heather, tell us about your journey into self-publishing. How did you get started and what made you want to write in the genre that you are in right now?
Well, I actually started out, I've always loved writing, so I've just always written just for fun and as a hobby. But a few years back, well, more than a few now, back in 2008 or 2009, I was volunteering for a ministry, and someone asked me about a devotional for teen girls. And I said, well, I volunteer for this ministry, but I don't know if they have any devotion. So I asked the owner of the ministry, and she goes, well, we don't, but I'd love to start one. Could you help me? So I started off writing that with her, and then later on she asked me to help her with training authors and helping them. We write books for them, and then I'm starting to branch into fiction right now. I've helped lots of fiction authors in the past, and I'm really excited about getting into that genre.
And what particular genre within fiction are you looking to write in?
I haven't decided yet. I've dabbled in about all of them. I've done romance, inspirational, mysteries. I've done almost everything, so I haven't narrowed down the one I want to publish yet.
I'm coining the phrase, I'm sure that there's another word for it, but fusion fiction, that is mixing of fiction genres. Would you do something that's a mix like that?
I don't know, I might.
Do you think a lot of times when people do that mix of genres, they often find it difficult to get readers? What are your thoughts about when somebody has a mixed genre like that, what they should do with it?
I say you pick one and market it as that. I mean, Amazon does let you choose 2 categories, so you could do like a romance and mystery, and there are those subgenres now where if you can mix 2 of them together, but you really should try to narrow it and keep it to something. Label it and go.
Sure. And yeah, go ahead, Arthur.
So once you've kind of decided on like what genre you're in, for some people that's easier because they're writing for a very specific genre. How do you help authors to find readers in that genre?
Well, as far as finding the readers, it's about networking. You know, you get online, you find groups that have people who like that. You just talk to readers, get to know them, just to be social. So if you get on Facebook, there's tons of Facebook groups, or even on LinkedIn or Google Plus or even Twitter now. You know, just get on there and start talking to readers and getting to know them. And usually if you do a guest blog on somebody else's blog, if you find another author that writes that, they can introduce you to their readers, and it's all about getting to know people.
And with that getting to know people, can you give us 3 practical things that you do in trying to get to know somebody? I know it sounds crazy, but a lot of times authors who are not online, they think that somehow being online is different than offline. But what are some 3 practical tips that you would give to an author that's looking to get to know people online?
Writing a blog post, either for your own blog or someone else's, and then going back through and reading the comments and responding to people. That's huge. You know, just let them know that you are a real person and you do care what they have to say. And then, like I mentioned, Facebook groups, that's been one of the biggest things for me. You know, there are interactive communities on Facebook where you can go and talk to people in that group and just talk back and forth. Don't market your book, just talk to them. So that's a second way. And then I would say email. That's one of my favorite ways. If you start an email list, you can send out emails to everyone who wants to follow you, and then sometimes they'll respond to you and you can just talk back and forth.
And that sounds very simple. Is it? And I don't want to make it seem like there's some secret sauce, or is there some secret sauce, or is it really that simple? In order to get readers, you just need to engage with them?
It really, in my opinion, it is simple. There is some behind-the-scenes stuff. You know, you do have to set up an email list. You can't just start emailing people because that's considered spam and is against the law. You do have to create your Facebook profile and optimize it to actually let people know that you're an author too. You know, you do have to do some behind-the-scenes stuff, you know, write a good author bio and all those kinds of things. But as far as getting to know people, it really is just that simple.
Very cool. So when it comes to marketing fiction or nonfiction books, we understand that effective book marketing happens well before the book is finished. What does your marketing plan look like, and what specific tasks are you doing before you finish your books?
Before I finish them, I always do a ton of keyword research. I look for what people are searching for in that genre, so I know what words to use in my marketing. That's not all of it, but that's part of the beginning, because you can use that in your book titles, you can use that in your book description and your tag words on Amazon to make your book more visible. And then I also, one of my favorite things to do is follow other authors to see what they're doing, because you can see what they're doing that gets results, but you can also see what you should never do, because you can kind of tell when you read something, you're like, oh my goodness, you posted that? you know not to make those mistakes yourself, so it's helpful to do that.
What's one of the biggest mistakes that you've ever seen somebody do on whether it's social media or email?
Well, the one I see the most repeated is simply somebody saying, buy my book, and it's like, no, why should I? You know, you should never do that.
Yeah. And that just plays into the idea of not knowing your market, right? And if just the idea, if you were trying to communicate to somebody and you knew your market, there would be an easier way to communicate to them because you actually understood how they want to be communicated to and whatnot. When it comes to your market and who you're targeting with your nonfiction books, how do you, maybe this is a long-winded question, but how do you then, what is the message that you're trying to convey to them specifically for your nonfiction books?
Well, I actually write in two nonfiction markets. I write books for authors, and then I write books for the teen devotionals for girls.
Okay.
So for the authors, I let them know that it is possible to publish your books. It is possible to market your books. You know, my goal is to help them. So I let them know that I give them hope, essentially. And I do everything I can to help them succeed.
Cool.
So in your other nonfiction topic, the devotionals and stuff, how do you go about finding your market for those types of books?
Well, a lot of that is just through teen ministry. My co-author, when we first started out, she already had built the ministry platform, and she already had a following online. So we just marketed it to them. And then we give out those devotionals free via email. So if they sign up for that, then they know that the book's available for purchase, and it almost markets itself at this point right now. But we also, whenever we meet teen girls, or whenever somebody asks us about those devotionals, you know, we can give them the links and stuff to that so they can be available.
Why don't you plug one of those books that you guys have written? If you were to say, here's a recommended book for a teen girl looking for a devotional, what's one of those books you would recommend?
Well, they're actually all in the same series, and it's called Teen Devotionals for Girls. So if you just Google that, it'll come up.
Awesome. Very cool.
So you've done marketing for fiction authors, and you do your own marketing for your nonfiction book. What are the differences in marketing a fiction book versus a nonfiction book?
I love that question, mainly because it's not what you're going to expect, because essentially you market them exactly the same, just differently. So both authors are going to need to have an email list. They're both going to want to be on social media. You know, they're all going to want to do the exact same things. They're just going to pitch it just a little bit differently. So instead of trying to help your audience, you're going to want to relate to them more and entertain them more. So with fiction, instead of sending out tips on marketing your book or whatever, you're going to do character interviews. You're going to do your email list will probably be more like, I've got a new book coming out. You're going to do more updates and stuff instead of this is how you do stuff. It's more social than how to. that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, so fiction books, they come and they go on Amazon. What things do you recommend authors to do to help them keep on top of the rankings?
Essentially, just keep marketing. As long as you are marketing your book, as long as you're out there talking about it and letting people know about it, there is always going to be a new reader. There's new readers coming around every day. I mean, there's millions of books. There's not a chance that everybody has read your book. So as long as you keep letting people know about it, as long as you keep getting out there and meeting new people, you're going to have new readers. It's when authors stop that they have a problem selling their books.
And the idea of the idea of marketing a book online, and that gets thrown around a lot, but what are some very specific things in marketing a book that somebody can do so that at the end of the day that they're saying, you know what, I'm listening, an author's listening right now, and people tell me all the time, you need to market your book. So I know what to do, but how do you actually do it? So what does a campaign actually look like? What, the steps or the process, if you can give a high level of that.
I would start off with having a website or a blog and a social platform, so a Facebook account and all those kinds of things. And then from there, you're just going to want to branch out. You're going to want to share book reviews that you've gotten. You can do quote photos, if you know what those are, where you just take a quote from your book and put it with a photo to share about your book. You can do emails to your following. You can write blog posts. Just get out there. And at the core of it all, you should have a good author bio that says, this is who I am, this is what I write, and here's where you can find me or my books.
And do you, in marketing, are you recommending that people do certain things on a daily basis, weekly basis, and for instance, like social media? When you're thinking about social media, what do you recommend for authors to do for social media on a daily or weekly basis?
Well, it's important to be visible. I recommend posting at least once a day on your chosen social media platforms. You can do more and you can do less, but that's kind of a good average. I set aside one day a week to schedule social media posts. So if I'm not online on Sundays, if I take some Saturdays and Sundays off. So if I'm not online those days, there's still posts there. But then I do go back and make sure on almost a daily basis that if there's any comments, I respond to those and interact with my following.
Nice. So when it comes to writing, how do you prepare yourself to write a project or write a book?
Like on a daily basis or on a project level?
Either way.
For projects, I do a lot of research. I look at the keywords like I mentioned, and I do some outlining. What do people want to know for nonfiction? That's what I go through, and I outline all the steps that they would need to know to succeed with what they're doing. For fiction, I do a lot of character brainstorming, and I still do a lot of outlining, the same thing. But on a day-to-day basis, I really don't do a whole lot. I'm a writer at heart, so I just sit down and write. If I'm not in the writing zone, I'm probably asleep.
And is there a particular place that you go to write, in your home, or what does that look like?
Well, I'm in my office right now. However, I don't always write here. I've got a laptop, so I can take it anywhere with me, or I'll jot notes in notebooks or whatever. I'm always writing.
That's cool. That's cool.
So, since you say you're always writing, where do you find time to do your marketing, and how do you find that balance between writing the next book and marketing what you have and marketing that next book coming up?
Well, lately I've been spending most of my time marketing, even though I'm constantly writing notes on my fiction book that I'm working on, and I'm constantly writing, bits and pieces for my nonfiction books. I have been focusing more on marketing lately. My goal is 50-50, but it never turns out that way. I'm kind of single-minded, so whenever I get started on something, I just kind of go with it until I reach a good point where I can shut my mind off.
Right now, there's a big fiction boom. There's, like I said, millions of books. Where do you see fiction, self-published books going kind of in the next few years as more and more people are starting to write and self-publish their books? Will it be harder or easier for authors to get exposure for their books?
I'm going to say that's a double-edged question. because it's going to become more essential to publish good books. Like right now, there are a ton of self-published books out there that honestly the authors wrote and published and left. You know, those books are just going to be left behind. No, people are starting to recognize those. They can look at a book by its cover and know how much work the author put into it. So those books aren't going to have much of a chance. However, for an author that puts in the work required, that takes the time to publish a good book and then start to market it, the sky's the limit. I mean, we live in an internet age. We've got so many options to market our books. But they also have to realize that, you know, offline marketing isn't dead. Getting your name in print is still going to be a key to the future. People are starting to get tired of the internet. They're starting to unplug or unsubscribe from email lists and bulk things. You know, you need to make sure that you're multifaceted as an author, that you know how to market your book in different ways. You don't have all your eggs in one basket.
And with the resources that you guys use, or you either yourself personally or through trainingauthors.com, what resources do you recommend to writers who are learning to write, publish, and promote their newer existing books?
If you are a fiction author, you absolutely have to check out K.M. Wieland's website, Helping Authors Become Writers. She has some amazing resources available there. And then if you're looking to self-publish a book, Shelley Hitz and I have co-authored a book called Self-Publishing Books 101, and it's actually free in ebook format on all the different ebook retailers. And we have a ton of other resources on our website that authors could check out, and that's trainingauthors.com.
With that, and just going to sidebar, so when you guys are offering that book completely for free, is that some strategy that you have that you're using that as a gateway, or how's that playing? Because giving away a book for free, just for some might seem like, why are you doing that?
Well, for us, it's a builder. It introduces people to us. It introduces them to our mailing list. And when they buy that book or when they download it for free, they can find out that they can get we have a training called Building Your Book Marketing Plan that you can get absolutely free for signing up for our newsletter list. And that gets them into our system where we can then start emailing them and communicating with them and just letting them, you know, getting to know them and getting them in our sphere of influence.
So that is, you have a specific sales funnel, and you're saying here's a gateway to get into that funnel, and you're using a free book to do that.
Yes.
And that sounds good on the nonfiction side. Have you seen that work well on the fiction side?
I have seen lots of authors use it in fiction. They'll do, like, if they write a book series, they'll make the first book free, and then it'll interest their readers to buy the rest of the books in that series. And once you know an author, you're more likely to buy their next book. And I've actually had that work on me. I had a review copy sent to me one time, and I bought all the other books the author ever published. So if it's a good book, it's a great strategy no matter what genre or niche you're in.
Yeah. And do you find it to be, I'm kind of brainstorming in my brain here. So do you find it easy for authors to get reviews? And if it is hard, what do you recommend they do to get reviews for their book?
Well, I actually co-authored a book called How to Get Honest Reviews, because it's not as hard as authors would think. You know, you just got to get out there and ask people. You can look up the top reviewers on Amazon and ask them to review your book. If you do that, you should make sure that they do review books in your genre. You know, I've gotten emails from authors saying, will you review my book? It's on how to deal with a miscarriage. And I'm like, I've never had a miscarriage. Why would I care? you know, you got to make sure you're in the right genre.
Yeah.
But you can contact, there's blogs that post book reviews. You can ask, there's groups on Facebook specifically for soliciting book reviews. You just have to know where to look and ask the right people.
And there are there are review places like NetGalley. And do you think those are useful for authors and something that authors should pursue if they're able to?
I've never heard of NetGalley specifically. There are some key things that authors would need to watch for. You need to make sure that you're not paying for book reviews that will be posted on Amazon, because that's against their terms of service.
Yep.
I've used Reader's Favorite. They do free book reviews, and they'll post them in different places. They won't post them on Amazon because they do offer a paid upgrade service that I've never purchased, but they'll send it to you and you can post it in your editorial reviews section.
Gotcha.
you should evaluate them on a site-by-site basis and see if they're following the terms of service and what exactly they're offering.
Very cool. Very cool.
So if you were to start today kind of as a brand new author, and you kind of are with fiction side of things, what few things would you make sure that you did just to start off on the right foot for that author who might have just published their book? What should they be doing as soon as they get off of this podcast? What should they be doing?
If their book is already published, they should go back through Amazon and make sure that it's everything's filled out. That's one of the things that I wish I would have known to start with, that every piece of information you put in is really important. You know, make sure you've got the back cover copy written, even if you're doing an ebook. That description on Amazon is what sells your books. You know, don't slack off or skip steps. You know, your author bio is important. Your author photo is important. You know, all those behind-the-scenes stuff that you don't really think about are actually more important than you can ever imagine. So I think knowing that, going back and doing the research to know your keywords, follow the authors that market similar books to you so you can see what works and what doesn't. I think the research is really, research and time is important to know.
Awesome.
Kind of as a follow-up to that, you mentioned following kind of what some other authors are doing. Is there a danger that a very, very popular author who's able to do something like price their book at $6.99 and still make sales, and following those types of things, is there a danger for the brand new author who nobody knows, who doesn't have that following, to use some of those tactics and strategies and stuff that somebody's using, but not be that they won't be able to implement it successfully because they're at a different stage? Sorry.
Absolutely. When you follow other authors, you should be aware that there is a difference between what you have as a beginning author and what, you know, Stephen King has as an established household name. You've got to know, you should know your limits, but you can always try something and see if it works, and then just evaluate it and see. And I never say that you should copy someone verbatim what they do. Following other authors is to get ideas for what you can do, to see kind of what other authors are doing and how you could make that work for you. So it's not I'm going to copy you and become your copycat author. It's I want to be inspired by you because you're so awesome.
Yeah. And that's just smart business, right? I mean, in as more authors look at this as they're entrepreneurs and they're trying to build a business, it's just smart to do that in business. If I'm trying to build a company, I'm certainly going to do competitive analysis. I'm going to make sure that I'm looking at what my competition is doing, so to speak, and in a nice sense that, you know, if they're doing awesome things, then there's some things that I'm going to like and just adapt and then translate that into what works for you. So yeah, that makes sense.
Absolutely. And along with the dangers of that, I will say that if you're going to try to implement something that someone else has done, you should make sure that you know exactly what they're doing. I recently heard about an airline that was trying to copy Southwest's business model, and they completely flopped and sunk their airline because they didn't do it. They were trying to do that and something else when it was really mutually exclusive. So as an author, that's important too. You know, if you're going to copy someone, make sure you know exactly what goes into their success, and so that you don't just pick one thing and, you know, sink yourself. You've got to know the entire story.
Awesome. Well, Heather, this has been really, really great. Heather Hart from trainingauthors.com. Before we go, where do you want people to connect with you? Where do you want to send people?
Well, if they want to get the free training that I mentioned earlier, they can go to trainingauthors.com/free gift, and they can sign up to get that for free via email.
Very cool. And thanks again, Heather. Really appreciate having you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And we'll see you guys next time. This is Sean Manher and RJ Adams with the Author Hangout. Take care. Are you confused about what you should be doing to promote your book? Luckily for you, our Ultimate Author Checklist is here to help.
We walk you step by step through building your book marketing engine so you can actively and passively sell more books.
Go to theauthorhangout.com/free guide to get our free Ultimate Author Checklist.